Hey, here we are for our second installment of Fast Times with Jeremy Linn. Got a couple special guests today. Really excited about spending some time with a couple of my very good friends. Right now, we're working on trying to get my Olympic team captain in. He's a little older than both Paul and I, so it takes him a little longer to click on the buttons on his computer. We do have Paul Yetter with us. And for those of you that need an introduction to Paul, he's the head coach at NBAC. And in addition to that, has spent a little time on national team staff, seven runs at the national team staff, including an Olympic team in 2008. His experience as a swimmer and a coach have turned a world of knowledge into that brain of his, and we're really excited about what he has to contribute to our questions about what we can do with the mental aspects of the sport, especially how mental and interpersonal talk, your interpersonal conversation, your self-talk guides the strength of your attitude and performance. So, Paul, thanks so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome, Jeremy. Great to be here.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll have Jon join us in the next couple minutes. I know that he's kind of getting a little technical help on the other side. So hopefully we'll see my Olympic team captain, Jon Olsen, 1992, 1996 Olympian. In 96, he was my Olympic team captain, 4-time gold medalist, one of my heroes in life. When I spend time with both of these two guys, my inspiration level, my motivation level goes through the roof. So I'm super excited just to get the opportunity to have an hour to pick these guys' minds. Paul, we're just scratching the surface of self-talk and what we can do with that and the actual power of it. When we were chatting yesterday, it just I know that it definitely guides my attitude, definitely makes me stronger, and it definitely helps me guide performance. But you were talking a little bit about the power of self-talk and how much you can actually achieve through self-talk. Can you give me a little bit of an example of how powerful it really can be?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think the one thing to put right out there is that we're all learning and getting better, with the way that we relate, within ourselves and to ourselves. And, I think, we were talking yesterday about personal examples, I in my career, my swimming career, I talked myself into swimming fast in practice. And, I had to, get with myself, so to speak, and say, hey, I am never, specifically what I did was I said, I'm never going to be the one that in practice is getting, scolded by the coach. I'm always going to be the one that stands out because, we were at a time with our training group where we were sort of getting a group lesson, and I was like, I don't really feel like this is directed at me, and I'm going to make it very clear over the next day, month, year that it's not going to be directed at me. So there's a little bit of, treating yourself in a way that's kind of like, you got to be hard on yourself, you got to be good to yourself, and you got to have both of those things working for you at the same time. And in my case, I just really talked myself into a different type of behavior in the pool. I went from being a pretty hard worker to being, just, insane in practice relative to my ability.
We talked a little bit about having to earn your own trust. Having that ability to be able to look yourself in the eyes and say, hey, man, great job, and truly believe yourself before you just start having that conversation to say, hey, dude, you better step it up or get tough on yourself. It's hard if you haven't complimented yourself or earned that compliment for yourself and been able to look in the mirror. We talked a little bit about I talk to my kids after a great practice. I don't necessarily pat them on the back too hard because it's kind of what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be great every day. They're supposed to dig deep and find something special and perform better than they ever have, or put themselves out there and fail and try again. But I do, tell them, when you're getting dressed or you're pulling out in your car, adjust your rear view mirror and look at yourself in the eyes.
Yeah.
And just tell yourself, great job today. And I think you're going to like what you see. And I think that lays the groundwork for somebody to kind of be a little bit tougher on themselves. Because when I look back and I think about the self-talk I use, there's a lot of explicitives. I was calling myself a lot of tough names, but I think I earned the right to push myself that way. Do you agree with that concept?
Well, absolutely. And then you can come back with it the other direction, where the people who are really tough on themselves, they absolutely have to be kind to themselves and give themselves credit when credit is due, and attack the perceived weaknesses in the correct way, in the healthy way, in the appropriate way within your own self. And we talked yesterday about the concept of treating yourself like a friend, like a really good friend, somebody that you'll tell the truth to, and somebody that you need to be kind to and you should be kind to. And and that sort of relationship that we have with ourselves through self-talk, I think, can be really powerful.
Yeah, and it's true. I think if people take a look, I think sometimes people aren't aware of all the conversation that they have with themselves and how tough they really are on themselves and the things they say to themselves to promote, behavior that might be not motivating. I think people are super tough on themselves and
sure,
tougher than they would be on a friend. And it's amazing so I think having a consciousness of what you're saying on a full-time basis is important too. I think for most of the swimmers out there and even coaches out there, they may not know that the things that they're actually saying to themselves, how damaging they can really be.
Couldn't agree more with that statement.
And I think, when you get to, I think there's positive effects you can get from self-talk, and then there's negative effects you can get from self-talk. And I think that it's not just an individual thing; it can be a group thing too. There's a phenomenon called groupthink, and I think when people get into that mindset, and it is a mindset that an entire group of people will get into, and it puts them in a rut, or it puts them into a spot where that's where we belong and that's all we're ever going to be. So, for instance, we're, it might be a training group that's not considered the primary training group, and they just go, oh, we're not the good group, so that's where we belong. And it becomes a mindset like, this is all we are and this is where we belong. Are there ways to combat that or recognize that groupthink and then combat that as a whole? I mean, I think the coach needs to be able to do that, but I think that the participants too.
Well, I think there's a little bit of, groupthink tends to have a negative connotation, right?
Sure.
So, and, we've been talking about so far as with a negative connotation. And, I definitely agree with you. I think that people can get into, not only what their teammates might say, but what their parents might say, what other coaches might say or whatever. But the positive connotation of groupthink is applicable if you've got great culture within your squad. Or you've got at least maybe you've got great culture within the coach and the swimmer, the kind of a two-person team. I mean, you can take it to that level, but the team is really the thing to focus on. I think that a lot of times when people focus on the team and they focus on getting out of their own, me, myself, and I pronouns, then that's when they can get, really invested into the sport and really do well with the sport. And so I think the groupthink, if you've got a sense of culture with a big group, small group, or a very small group, then you can go ahead and attack groupthink in a positive way, and you can bring people along. And a lot of the times the teams, the swimming teams or whatever organization it is, will have a mission and or a vision statement that'll go along with, like, hey, basically the vision statement is, hey, this is what we want our groupthink to be. So, if you line up with that kind of groupthink in that positive way, there's Jon. Then I think it can be really powerful stuff.
Jon, hit your mic and hit your camera. Welcome.
Camera's on.
Your camera's going to be that little circle. There you are. All right, do that again.
Jon,
hey, Jon,
everybody, welcome.
What's going on?
We're just chatting about.
Got it.
Circle to the left of Jeremy's head.
Yeah, I got it, Mike. I got it. I'm in.
Awesome.
Thanks, brother.
So Jon, our show's called Fast Times with Jeremy Linn, but we understand that you are one of the fastest swimmers in the history of the world and probably one of the slowest dudes on land in the history of the world.
Yes, that's all true.
For those of you that don't know, Jon, his nickname is Poke. So that's Poke right there, everybody. Welcome. My Olympic team captain, 4-time Olympic gold medalist. Super psyched to have you here today, brother. We were just talking about the term groupthink. And it's funny, Paul mentioned, because I kind of said, usually it has a negative connotation. And the reason I thought that way, Paul, the first thing I thought was, groupthink, that's awesome, because I think my groupthink for my team is really awesome. I'm going to look up the definition just to make sure I understand what the word means, because I'm not all that smart. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, I guess groupthink's negative. And I was like, okay, maybe I don't have groupthink. And I was like, but I'm super glad that you reinforced the idea that it can be a very positive thing too. And I really dig into the idea of, each individual needs to be a contributor to a team. And everybody kind of plays a role in the success of the team. Jon, I'm sure you agree with that. You've been on some amazing teams. As an individual, I think everybody plays different roles. Do you have, when people want to identify what is my role in the success of this team, because I think everybody plays a different one, how can you help an individual figure out what that role is, or be an individual to figure out what their role in group success can be?
That's a tough question, I guess, Jeremy, but as a coach, it's obviously our job to help find those roles for our swimmers. But it's one of those things that I think just kind of takes time. Especially a young swimmer, maybe going to a college team or finding a new spot. It's going to take them time to figure out what role they're going to have in that team. But no matter what the capacity, it's just their job to do what you can to bring others up around you, no matter what role that is.
And I think that attitude is going to guide that. And I, walking in the door, I think is an attitude where the attitude begins, or when you wake up in the morning, where your attitude begins. It's so, my attitude is that I'm going to find my spot to be the best contributor I can be on this team. If you think that way and talk to yourself that way, that's what your mission's going to be. If that
right.
makes sense.
Absolutely.
Certainly we have distractions on a day-to-day basis. If you're looking to walk into an environment and be a positive contributor on a bad day, on a day that it might not have gone everything your way, but now it's time to be a part of something else. How can you make that happen for yourself?
That's up to each individual. I mean, good God, we've got the past 6 months worth of examples in that area. There's been a lot of bad days for a lot of swimmers over the course of the past 6 months. So it's all about keeping that positive attitude and keeping your eyes on the long haul at this point instead of the short term. The short term has been pretty bleak for everybody over the past 6 months. So it's a matter of staying positive by keeping your eye on what the long-term goal is at this point. And then getting down to when you have your opportunities to take advantage of and work on your short-term goals, that comes into play. But it's real easy these days to turn that around and be very negative. And it's times like this that are really going to show the power of the mental side of our sport when athletes are dealing with the challenges that they're dealt with every day these days.
Yeah. And I think of like, just having that symbolistic thing that you do when you walk in the door. You see like a football team that runs out on the field and hits the sign that says "Play great today" or "Be your best you today" or whatever it is. Maybe
Right.
you have some sort of ritual that helps you leave whatever it is you want to, are bringing with you to the door at the door, so that when you walk into the room that you're going to be spending time being special in, you can leave that behind you and maybe, rejoin it when you get back outside of that space. You agree with that, Paul?
Jeremy, I was just thinking about a couple things as you were talking about that, and I thought you were framing that question towards John. I was really thinking about these bad days and how people deal with them. And so, I think it'd be good to speak on that because, you guys have both been to international competitions, and 7 days, 8 days of a meet, right? Our USA swimming swimmers are swimming meets that are 5 days for juniors, 6 days for nationals, 4 days for sectionals. Pretty much everybody that's at the sectional level is doing one of those meets, right?
Right.
So I, really like to point out to people that, you got to be able to perform on the bad days. You've got to be able to step up and do your job or, whatever it might be on your bad days. And you're going to probably not feel the same. If you swim in an Olympic trial meet, let's say it's an 8-day meet every day, all 8 days. And you're going to feel great one day, maybe. You're going to feel probably, maybe you're not going to feel great every day. Let's put it that way, right? So you got to be able to perform. And so what I like to do is talk about that and talk about how, you've got to be able to do it anyways. And then the other thing is, one of the things that we talk about with my squad is you take to really assess your training for each week. You take your best day and your worst day and you throw them out. You throw them both out. You got to throw your best day out just like you throw your worst day out because they're both the valleys.
Yeah.
The true, the trail, is trodden through the peaks and the valleys. So you've got to be able to go through, all that stuff and be able to perform. But I think getting back to the self-talk topic, and this is where I was kind of writing stuff down as you were asking questions because I didn't want to forget. But, that concept of, you probably won't have amazing days all the time at a competition. So you've got to be able to just sort of embrace it and just do your best and hold yourself to some high standards when you're having those bad days. I'd be happy to answer that other question that you had for me if you want to say it again.
Well, I think the same. If you don't mind me interjecting, the same goes for workouts, not just competitions. You take a week-long competition. It's the same thing every week. Some days you feel great and you can do no wrong in practice. Some days it's just the opposite. So I totally agree. You gotta find that way to get it done, no matter if it's workout or competition on those bad days.
I remember Jenny Thompson getting out of the pool one time. I saw it on on a replay video. It was probably at trials. I think she broke the world record in the 100 free. And I believe it was her. And I think it was her that said, I just didn't feel great in the warm up. And I was like kind of surprised. And how many times have you guys seen that, heard that, felt that, where somebody doesn't feel great, they swim awesome. Somebody feels awesome, they don't swim great. And then everywhere in between, it's, it's just the way that it actually goes.
Yep.
Yeah, so Paul, about 3 days before I broke the American record in the 100-yard breaststroke, I called an emergency meeting with Coach Tremblay to tell him that I forgot how to swim breaststroke. I didn't know how to do it at all, and I'm sure he made this up. He was like, "This is so interesting, Jeremy." 3 days before Mel Stewart broke the world record in the 200 fly, he called me in for the exact same meeting. And I think all he was doing was making my brain click back into the space it needed to be in. But it's amazing, how, if you're living in that moment or you let that moment stay with you, how it can disrupt things. And I think it's about living in your moment now, just being the best you can be at doing what you're doing right now. So in that 8-day meet, all I'm doing is warming up right now. I'm just going to be my best at that, and quit thinking about what you did, what you have to do, but just be in that moment. And we really try and train that full time. Hey, you're going back to your past. Yes, I want you to remember your times, or yes, I want you to think about how fast you want to go or whatever. You have that. Now be in your moment and do what you're doing now the best you can be. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way you talk to yourself too, because if you're talking to yourself about what's going to happen, you're not living in this moment. And if you're talking to yourself about what you screwed up or man, I was really great yesterday. All right. Yesterday was my day. Yes. And now you're in today and you're not in that moment. I think that's a really important part of, management of how you're talking to yourself, is making sure that you're keeping yourself in the now. Cool. So, I think, we're talking about how group success, it's going to beget individual success. It's an atmosphere that you have a culture, an atmosphere that gives people opportunity. You just walk in the door, it feels super strong, positive. I got room to learn, grow, and be special in these moments. And I think that a great word for a team or a space is synergy. You achieve synergy, and I think the more you try to achieve synergy, the harder it becomes. So what can we all do to help create a synergistic atmosphere where it's right for people being successful? As athletes or swimmers.
I'll start that off. I feel like talking about each other positively to others is a really great way. Coaches talking to athletes about other athletes in a positive way, it always gets back. Coaches talking to other coaches about athletes, athletes talking about other athletes, pointing out things that people are doing well. And I think coaches do come up with different ways. Athletes can kind of gather around the circle and talk to each other about that sort of thing. But I think the organic synergy is really the way that it needs to be. That yelling across the lane and that kind of thing, that's the really powerful stuff.
Yeah, and you can't go, hey guys, yell more, or hey, let's be positive today. That's not really what it's out. I think it's something that you have to live and breathe. And I love you mentioning that exercise, because I smiled because and any of my swimmers that are listening smiled too, because we have a little team room, and on a weekly basis we'll say, say something you saw cool happen this week, and I didn't say talk about another swimmer. They always did. They always said, I've been seeing this guy light things up. And then it's, what are you excited about? And it could be like, we got a new dog. It's amazing. We got a new dog. It's exciting. Or I'm really excited for getting an opportunity to swim the 2 fly 5-3 back to back this week. It's going to be awesome.
Well, and Jeremy, look at how good of friends you and Jon are. And you guys did that stuff in 1996, the two of you and other people, and you're on relays and you're talking each other up for 6 weeks. And here we are, how many years later, right?
Yeah,
and you're still great friends. And that's the kind of thing that bonds people together. And, that's a really powerful part of our sport. Forget the times and the medals and that kind of thing. It's the bond that's created.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and tell me how. I mean, we're all working with high school age kids, and I think this happens for college age kids too. The distraction of, I think there becomes a line of, where's the friendship in the working relationship work together, and what's more important for the success of a swim team or an individual? Is it being best pals and going bowling together, or is it a mutual respect in that you have for each other because you have common goals and you need to work together to get there? Jon?
Yeah, I think it's definitely coming from a guy. My last 2 years of high school, I swam by myself for 2 years. So when I got to college, I was so excited to have teammates to share life experiences with, but especially teammates that I could race with on a daily basis. And so for me, kind of finding my role as a teammate, as a freshman, was to kind of call out some of the older guys and pick somebody new to race every day. And they may have hated it at the time. Hey, freshmen, slow down a little bit. But at the same time, it's picking everybody else up, together, and ultimately makes the team better. Now as a coach, I encourage my kids on a daily basis to watch what their teammates are doing. If somebody's doing something really well technique-wise, I'll pull everybody to the side and have them watch somebody. I encourage them to race on a daily basis and to race their neighbors, race their friends, race their teammates. And by doing that and them watching each other, they're organically giving each other compliments and high fives and whatever's going on around the pool deck.
We love to put in that game of impersonating somebody, like somebody's doing something really well. Let's channel your inner so-and-so and
absolutely
look just like them, and we'll have everybody do it just like them. I think that's a great, number one, it's a compliment. Number two, everybody has fun trying to do that. But and I think it brings everybody together in an awareness of how well people around you are doing things. And if you do that exercise once in a while, then it's like, oh man, they're watching more often. Like, hey, that guy's beating me on turns. Let me pay a little more attention to what he's doing, and I'm gonna be more like him. So people start to make that choice through that exercise, and I think that's a big deal for it as well. Paul, you seem to be nodding to that. You agree with that?
Well, I'm thinking about how Jon's talking about when he's at workout, he's going fast and he's a younger kid and he's getting, essentially what I call workout shamed. And I think it's a great point. And, it's like, sometimes it's like it happens once or twice and it's like no big deal. But I think a lot of times what happens is I think our audience here with this particular presentation is mostly high school age and just a little bit younger athletes, student athletes, right? Middle school and high school, a little bit older, a little bit younger. A lot of times these athletes move into their senior training groups and they're pretty good. And they sort of subtly, Jon, to your point that you didn't say, some people aren't like you. They kind of hold back and try to make sure everybody's cool with them and they fit in well with the group. And, sometimes you got to not fit in, to become great. Certainly a world record holder at times trains alone. But the workout shaming, I think it might be a little bit of a tough wording for it, but it's a big deal.
Yeah,
and
it is a real thing too. Workout shaming is a very real thing, and I think talking about the poisons that can happen, that's definitely one of them.
And it creates self-talk within. We're talking about self-talk. So the workout shaming creates self-talk within the person who's being shamed, as we continue to use the term. It's like, if somebody says, sometimes people might say, you always swim so fast in the warm-up, but you never swim fast in the main set. And, my belief is that sometimes people who are just starting to get good, they can be very good in the warm-up because they're not really that tired yet. They're not really that fatigued. And they can kind of, especially if they warm up on the land for 10 or 15 minutes like many do, they can get in and get it going and be pretty good, and then build an entire workout and, you know, build 120 minutes starting with 30 minutes and just kind of build it from there. So that person then might say to themselves, you know, that's true. You know, I do warm up faster, and they might not see sort of the end of the road there, where they will take that 30 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes and 2 hours and beyond.
Tomorrow's 32 minutes. The next day's 34 minutes, and you keep getting better at it until you have that block of time where you're special. And John, I totally understand. Like, if you're working out by yourself because you could have, you know, you had to do it because you didn't have anybody to work out with. When I was in high school, I became a distraction because I was going too hard and too fast, and so I had to spend some time alone, and that was fine. But I did get an opportunity when I went to college to do what you said and come into that new environment and push myself, you know, right past any kind of workout shame and say, "Excuse me, sir," on the way by. I thought it was very important that I respectfully went much faster than everybody.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an important part of what I did too. And I think, you know, it kind of parlays into the idea of the, you know, we're talking about the power of, you know, what you can do with the conversation you're having with yourself. But I think the conversation you're having with yourself shows in body language. And the power of body language to an entire environment from one person in one moment can change things completely, for the positive and for the negative. Unfortunately, for the negative, it seems to show up a little more often and be a little more effective. You know, in an example of poor body language is rolling your eyes, shrugging your shoulders, dragging your equipment bag. It's so simple to have poor body language in a moment. And it could be that you're not trying to portray that message, but because of your body language, you are. And you affect the others around you, I think, with body language, just whether you want to or not. And I think it can be done in a more positive way, too. You know, we got two guys and they're slapping the water after they swim because they're having so much fun swimming faster. I got touched out, and they're ready to do it again, you know. But that body language is people around them are like, let's go, this is great. Look, these guys are doing it and they're having fun doing it. You know, positive versus negative body language. Give me some help, guys. Where can we have a little more awareness of how we carry ourselves?
Yeah, we're all in a tribe. You know, we're all in a tribe. Let's say we're at a competition with a team. We're all in a tribe, and you know, it subtly sends a message. If you are, to your point, Jeremy, kind of slouched over, that you're scared of fighting, and that you're probably going to lose if you get in a fight. And so that sends that message to your teammates that you better not go back to back with this person because they're scared to fight. And they might subtly start to get the hint that maybe they should be scared to fight too. They might start to think like, maybe there's a reason that I should be scared to fight. Where conversely, if you've got positive, powerful body language, then people are like, there's no reason to fear anything right now. And so it goes in the complete opposite direction.
Yeah, and you know, John, how much of that is portrayed in confidence and how you earn confidence? We talk about what it means to give 100% effort and build confidence within yourself, to set small goals and achieve them on a regular basis to build confidence. How much body language does it have to do with your confidence?
I think a lot. I think they go hand in hand. You know, you can walk around the pool deck no matter what the level of competition, and you can see the kids that have that body language and that self-confidence, and that know that those kids are gonna put it down and rise to the occasion, no matter if they're having one of those good days or bad days, because of that confidence in that body language. I definitely think they go hand in hand. You know, you can see it. Like I say, no matter what level of competition we're talking about, whether it's age group, whether it's sectionals, or even to the Olympic Games, you see some people that are walking around the pool deck just knowing that something good's about to happen, and they don't have to say a word. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in their body language.
It used to be one of my favorite things as an athlete is being a student of how people carried themselves on deck, and you could just see. I wasn't really super well educated on who everybody was at a swim meet. I was kind of doing my thing, and I was going to win the swim meet because I belonged there. And I think that's part of what confidence is. Like, hey, you're in this swim meet, so you belong here. So act like it. And
Yep.
busy doing that, but I was also, taking my time to kind of observe others, and you're never wrong. Like, you pick that guy or that girl that you see carrying themselves with confidence through whatever they're doing in their routine. It might be the way they're jumping rope, or the way they're stretching, or the way they're pre-race warming up, or even the way they're hanging out behind the blocks before they get going. You see those individuals, and you can put a check mark on. Like, I'm going to watch that person race, and I know it's going to be special. And conversely, you can see the one that's going to have a tough time too. And it's amazing the effect that one can put on a group of people. Most of us are going to a swim meet with a group of people. 2, 3 to 18 people. You're going with them. And how in that time you're spending at a meet, how effective your body language can be, or the 2 words you say to somebody or out loud. I don't want to warm up. Like, how did that help everybody?
Jeremy, I think people should know, and actually I don't know the full details about this, but your pre-race routine that you had as an athlete, I think, because I've heard a little bit about your pre-race routine, and I know that you had one, and I know that you're not going to ask yourself that question. I think you should tell people about it, because in terms of positive body language, to me, what I have heard other people say about your pre-race routine, there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah, and it evolved a lot through time, and it's fun to listen to some young guys that have heard, legend stories of it. You used to flip off the block into the water. I'm like, yeah, I did that for sure. Let the legend grow a little bit. But I think what it has to do with, and it's something that I started doing very early, was, putting on a little bit of a show for the athletes that are around me, for the people that are watching. In my mind, everybody was watching me, and I wanted, and I was going to portray myself that way, that, I'm the only person everybody's watching. And whether it was, putting my legs in the water and splashing a bunch of water on my face and blowing water out up into the air in a big spray because I knew it was windy and it would travel, across the pool. Or if I'm being, my vertical leap was like 43 inches, and if you bring your knees up next to your ears, it's more like 83 inches, so you can jump over a guy's head. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, I had a great friend, Dave Denniston. I used to race against him quite a bit, spent some time on the national team with him. But he would tell me, once it was all said and done, he's like, man, once you jumped over my head, I couldn't, there's no way I could do you. So it's part of that was, I'm gonna portray myself as and I truly did believe that I was going to execute and I was going to race to win, but I was going to allow that confidence to show. And honestly, I was pretty inwardly, I had to spend a lot of time before that pre-race routine controlling my breathing, stretching, staying calm. I have a lot of energy if you hadn't picked up on it. And I think it's important to control that energy so that I could filter it into the moments that I needed. And in those moments, controlling your self-talk. I mean, I think all of us can say, at a big swim meet, doubt will come in your mind. Doubt will happen. You will have that thought, and I think you need to be able to recognize it and let it release it.
That's a great point, Jeremy. Because we talk about self-talk, it's like, well, who are we talking to? It's
Mhm.
like there's two things that are happening, and I visualize it like there's two volume knobs, right? And people grow up, with one knob like really cranked up. When you're a kid, you don't talk to anybody for the first year of your life. You don't say anything, and then your language is developing. Your brain isn't even developed. You're hearing all this stuff, and as your brain is growing, you're hearing all this stuff. You can't really process it that well. So as you get older, you have that volume up really high, on that side, because you sort of become like a mixture of yourself and what everybody's kind of telling you are, and like what you are, feeling from the people around you. And then as you get older and everything's developed, then you can start to, feel that other knob start to turn up. And then that's where the self-talk comes in. And, Jeremy, to your point, I think that the really big breakthroughs with people, whether it be athletically or personally, happen when the self-talk volume on the one side goes up to a degree where you kind of drown out the volume that's on that weaker side, that's, a little bit more geared towards like making excuses for yourself and weakness and kind of fight or flight and sort of like, that kind of thing. And then the other side is the side that, needs to take over. And I think that people should catch themselves, in the moment where they're sort of like dueling a little bit for which is going to have the higher volume. And I feel like, if you can sort of win, have the one side win over the other side, you can begin to dampen and really start to drown out that, that side of you that really is kind of the weaker side. That's not the side that needs to step up with authority and kind of claim the moment.
And I think that whatever exercise it takes, some people need to get active, need to jump rope for 15 minutes and find that zone, or find where their controls are. Some people need to put their headphones on, sit in a corner and stretch. And I think, being able to, especially, as a youth that's trying to develop themselves in this sport that we do over and over again, because it's so difficult to do and perfect, that it takes time. I think that they need to be training or making choices consciously on how they're going to try and do things. And I think so many times somebody tries to put something into their routine and they try it once or twice. And like you said, hey, they were trying to go hard for the whole workout, but they realized they aren't able to do it and they give up on it. Giving up on something a little bit too soon and not allowing yourself to have the reps. And I think a lot of what we do is managing, trying to insert something or achieve something, failing at it, trying again and again and again. John, you agree with that?
Absolutely. It can't be something, whether it's your pre-race routine or whatever it is. It's great to try new things. You may not stick with them, but don't give up. It's not about succeeding or giving up. It's just about evolving and letting that routine grow into what it ultimately will be. So yeah, don't ever give up on yourself. Everybody, yes, that doubt comes into play, but you got to figure out how to work past that and evolve past that.
Yeah. And I think we're talking about all these ways that we can kind of tune into the things that we're saying to ourselves. I think being able to use the things that you hear other people say to you is really important too. I have a specific moment in my mind, that American record that Steve Longcliffe held for 14 years before I got an opportunity to take it down, meant a lot to me. And we used to do the swim meet at SMU, and I'm just picking a moment in time that stuck with me. We used to do this swim meet at SMU where Steve was from, and when you walk in the old, it was an old basketball gym, and the swimming pool's in the middle of the basketball. It's like stadium seating with and they invite 7 teams from around the country, and only 7 guys get to compete. So when I go there, I'm swimming the 50 free, the 500 free, the 200 IM, the 400 IM, the breaststrokes, all of that. It's a cool moment. But I love to kind of have moments with myself too. So I stopped and I looked at that record board, and I look at Steve Lundquist's name, and I look at his time on the board, and I'm just kind of standing there and thinking about, my name being there instead of his. And a guy on my team, fairly arbitrary who it was, it doesn't matter, comes by me and says, "Keep dreaming, buddy. It'll never happen." And so he was in my head. He knew what I was doing. And instead of being like, "Yeah, dude, I can see him taking that name down," he decided to choose to do it that way. Well, I have a choice now to take that information or that message and use it how I want to. And instead of going, "Oh, you're right, it's not going to be me," I chose the path of, "I'll show you." And I think that, there was a whole lot of "I'll show you" in the way that I carried myself throughout my swimming career. And I think part of it has to do with the person I am today, because nobody can tell me I can't do something. I'll prove it to, not by saying so, but showing you. And I think that using anything you hear, positive or negative, is the proper fuel for success, is an important part of what we have to do, because you're not always going to hear the things you need or want to hear. I think that's important. Do you agree with that?
I think everybody hears in especially in other sports, whether you love football or baseball or whatever it is, you always hear announcers talking about, well, this person said something either negative or positive about another team or a competitor, and it's bulletin board material, right? You can take, whether it's negative or positive, you can take that bulletin board material and use it to your advantage. Absolutely, Jeremy.
Yeah, so I thought about the fact that what the things I wanted were a small fire in my belly, and you can stoke that fire, and those are the kind of things that did it for me, was having those moments. But it does take me to the power of visualization and seeing what seeing success, or seeing a moment in time that you want to happen. Paul, we talked about one yesterday, and I love the moment that you talked about. I think it was Brian Goodell. Yeah, can you tell me that story?
Yeah, I can. And it's great that you brought that up, because Brian Goodell, to my knowledge, and I hope I'm not messing this up, did some work with the Pacific Institute as a young student athlete, and I believe he was actually part of that institute later in life, and is now the mayor of Mission Viejo. And he was the 1976 1500 gold medalist, among many other things. And from what I can remember about his story, and the reason that I bring it up, with the Pacific Institute, is because I also went through some seminars with the Pacific Institute as a young swimmer. And one of the things I learned with them, and Jeremy, you really make me think about this particular point, is that I don't know if the Pacific Institute made this up or not, but they talk a lot about how words create pictures, which create emotions. And emotions are pretty active things, and they create feelings and energy. And so words create pictures, which create feeling and energy. And so, in Brian Goodell's case, from what I know of the story, he was swimming in the Olympic final in 1984 in Los Angeles, which was his hometown, or at least it was the town that he essentially trained at, Mission Viejo, south of LA. And he's, in the race, doing fairly well, but I believe he said, like, he couldn't really feel his body and that kind of thing, and he was really nervous. He was nervous walking out, marching out, that kind of thing. In the beginning of the race, just wasn't really as into the race, as we'll speak of in a second, as he was in the last couple hundred. And so here's the real point to this story. he gets to about the 1100 and sees that, it's quite possible that he could, win the bronze medal, if he continues to do as well as he's starting to do in the race. And he goes back to his visualization that he had been doing, and his thinking was, his picture, his mind was of himself on the top podium having won the gold medal. And so something went off inside of him, which was like, no, I'm here to win the gold medal. And it was the picture that created that emotion, and it was the picture that created that energy that he then had like spark plug. It was just like, boom, and he had that amazing last 400 where he came back to swim. I believe it was under 4 minutes, which was like right around the American record time at that time in the 400 to finish the 1500 and win the gold medal. And it was his ability to spend time on his, not only his self-talk, clearly, but his ability to visualize his ultimate success. And then he didn't stray from it, because he had done so much work on it. It was not something that was a thought for him. It was something that was an automatic, like it just went off, and he was like, this is what I came here to do. And he went on and did it.
Yeah, John, your experience with visualization?
Lots of experience with visualization. Maybe not so much within a race. Those damn distance swimmers have that advantage of lots of time. but yes, lots of visualization. And I tell my young swimmers the same thing, whether it's competition or a workout. Before you ever stand on the blocks, take a minute to sit back, and whether you close your eyes or not, see what's about to happen before you make it happen. It's a powerful tool. It really is. And those images in your memories that you're creating can spark that spark plug of energy. It can do wonders for you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we like to consider the idea that when you practice visualizing yourself doing something, succeeding, executing, that you're actually training your brain to think it's already happened. To when you find yourself in that moment, you're executing, not for the first time, because you've already seen it happen.
And you've already felt it.
Yeah,
you guys have gotten goosebumps visualizing before, right?
Absolutely.
You've already felt it happen. And so then it's like you just want to feel that feeling. Your body and your brain just work together, and they just want to feel that great feeling. And without thought, you just go for it.
Yeah. And then once again, because you've practiced that for so long, it's easy to tap into that same thing again.
Yeah. And it's amazing that, my club coach knew this, and he wasn't necessarily explaining to us why we were going to practice this. We were just going to practice this, and it's really awesome to understand on the other end how this helps you, because it was something that I've inserted into my day-to-day activities. Still today, I visualize the success of the things I need to do on a regular basis. So this isn't just a practice that I've done for my sport. It was a practice that I learned from my sport. It's a practice that I've carried forward into the way I do things for my whole life. And again, I like to revisit those moments of visualization, or those moments that I can reference from my experience. And I remember, John, I'm sure you remember it well, at Indianapolis. They're now painted on the wall.
Yeah, your name's painted on the wall. They were. They had a painter on a lift, and he would literally paint your name on the wall. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I remember when I arrived in 1996, they were just putting up the 1996 Olympic team, painting that up there.
Yep.
And I took the time, and I don't know how many people actually do that, but I took the time to stand there and watch him do that, visualize him painting my name onto that wall.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I making connections with successful moments that don't necessarily just have to be me swimming really fast or me doing something really well, but me feeling that moment of success, I think, are really important too. What's it going to be like when they're playing the national anthem for me? I want to spend that moment. And I think, you can harken back to standing on a basketball court when you're a kid and you're bouncing the ball and you're like, NBA Finals, 2 seconds left on the clock, and you're bouncing the ball and you're putting yourself in that moment and you give them a shot and they make it, and the crowd goes wild. I think it's so important. And I think that has a little bit to do with imagination, in how much that can play into what will be success, is using your imagination a little bit more as to what's possible. And I think that's power of thought right there. And I think it's something that a lot of our kids, it's hard for them to use an imagination if they don't have a screen in front of them or a world they're building on that screen, instead of just using the power of what they have for the pictures in their mind. Thoughts on that, fellows, as we're getting close to the end of our time?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think a good imagination is a powerful tool as far as visualization. I can remember numerous times as a kid training and coming in at the end of a set and looking at whether it's the lane next to you or a couple lanes over and seeing somebody a few yards ahead of you, and you're racing them to the wall and thinking in your mind, this is me at the Olympics on the tail end of a relay running somebody down.
I got to win
many times doing that. So
yeah,
I think imagination's a powerful tool.
Yeah, and the way I try and do it with my athletes, my group athletes, is give them a lot more choices to make, because I think that they have to use their imagination a little bit to make those choices. Sometimes I think we can get into the idea of you got to do this, instead of going, you have this block of time and you're going to choose what you're going to do to help yourself get better.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think of those things?
It's funny that our training groups at NBC are named Imagination and Discovery and Challenge and High Performance. It's funny, because we were joking about it the other day. I was like, I think we should actually be the Imagination group.
Yeah.
Because you guys are the ones that, at this point, this is when you really need to have some serious imagination.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to it's kind of a joke, we're not going to rename our groups. It works, but it's student athletes that are training, for 2 hours a day. It's no fun if you're not using your imagination. It's no fun if you're not trying to think about, the beyond limits. We talk about with our squad looking, shooting for the stars that you can't see. So the concept has a lot to do with imagination, in the sense that, when you look at the clear sky, you see, how many stars. There's so many stars that you can see, but with our human eyes, we can only see less than 1% of all the stars that are actually out there. And so when we talk about shoot for the stars you can't see, it's just sort of it's a way of saying, we want to shoot for big goals. We want to shoot for the types of goals that, I heard said by David Goggins, that makes us uncommon among uncommon people.
Yeah.
I think that's a great statement, and that's really the way that we'd like to be.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thought to leave everybody with, is using their imagination, not only to visualize what's possible or create what's possible in their mind. Most of our swim coaches, most of us are asking people to try and achieve something during a set, trying to achieve something or do something a certain way, but maybe using your imagination to go above and beyond what's being asked of you, and layering that, not just going, I'm going to do this too, but I'm going to do this, and this too. It's a tremendous part of being successful beyond what's being asked of you. So I think using that imagination is a tremendous part of it.
Yeah.
And I imagine, fellows, that we could probably talk for another hour or so, and maybe I'll be able to wrangle you two cats back in some other time. But we're pretty much running towards the end of our time today. And make sure we're some fast times, fellows. Thanks so much for being
Right on, man.
Anytime.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, Jeremy.
you guys are true friends, and like I said, when I want to be inspired, I don't want to look at two other faces, but y'all, thank you so much.
Right on.
Got it, brother. Anything.
And we'll look forward to just a quick 2 weeks from now, Tuesday, 3 p.m. We'll be back with some more exciting, fun stuff to talk about and go over. So thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today. And between me and Paul, who's got the bigger hair? Oh, Paul, no cut to the hair, baby. All right, guys. Thanks so much for the day, and we'll talk to you guys very, very soon. Thanks again.
See you guys.
Take care.